Hello, everyone, and welcome to our January 2022 open mic night. Tonight, we are going to be talking about record keeping. We're going to be exploring what some urban farmers in the area are doing around this topic, whether it be crop planning or financial record keeping. And we are joined this evening with two awesome urban farmers, Felice Hodge Denison with Primo Noir LLC and Stephanie Young with Blue Berwyn Farm. Did I say that right? Blue Berwyn Farm? Yes, okay. For some reason I like lost it there for a second. And they're going to chat with you about their experiences, and of course we'll all, kind of chip in with the regular discussion. In addition, I will also have some resources that I'll drop in the chat box throughout tonight, and I can also send via email tomorrow. So again, welcome. Thank you guys so much. We're going to we'll go alphabetically. Felice, if you're ready, why don't you go ahead and you can kick us off, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers and discussion. Thank you guys so much for joining us this evening.
No problem. I'm super excited about the opportunity. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to go to my screen. Okay, I believe this is the correct one. All right, so what I wanted to start with today is basically just that I'm going to share some of my tips and tricks. This is not 100%, I'm pretty sure there's a better way to do some of these. So I'm certainly open to hear the remainder of the evening, what other um, recommendations anyone may have. But I've just pretty much tried to capture in a brief overview how I've been able to document some of the very valuable information that I wanted to capture for my purposes. Okay, so let's see. I think I can advance it here. All right, there we go. So the main, oh, wait a minute. Give me 1 second. I gotta go out and start again. There we go. All right. Sorry guys, my computer is running really slow. I had to reboot my computer a minute ago because I completely lost you guys. So I apologize.
No worries. It happens. Happened to me this weekend, so I get it.
Take your time.
All right, there we go. Let's try it again. I gotta come back to this. I'm gonna close some of this stuff out. I gotta come back to that article, that New York Times article. I can't wait to read it. That's super awesome. Is it gonna let me share now?
I don't think I even realized you could do presentations in Canva. That's pretty nice.
Oh yeah. I love using their templates. They have some really good ones.
I have to remember that. Use it for social media, but I haven't thought about it for presentations.
And you could also upload, Kim, your brand to be used in your templates. It's awesome.
Something's wrong with it. Um, because it just okay, there we go. It duplicated some of my pages. All right. So here's where I kind of toot my own horn. I am an entrepreneur, resident of PG County and Master Garner, some later this year. So I'm super excited about that. For those of you that missed the introduction. I'm just gonna go ahead and move the I'm gonna go ahead and move this screen manually. So some of the things I wanted to talk to today, and some that I felt were the most valuable records for my organization, were capturing my data for my activities, my expenses, the crops, and the revenue. So that's pretty much what I'm going to focus on today. Let's see if it'll let me present now. There we go. While I'm waiting for that to come up, mainly I would start with some of the just general information that I found about record keeping in general. When I was just kind of getting started, I looked at some of the major farm information that was available online. So I went to organizations like USDA and PG County and the state of Maryland and looked at how their farm data was organized. And with those of you that have been farming for a while, you know that farming has like certain it's a specific industry and it has a certain way of that things have to be done. So I wanted to focus on the farming data that was available on a larger scale so that I could kind of scale it down. And then I also went through some of the different avenues that I knew that I wanted to use it for. So I mean, if you can think about it like going from the end towards the beginning, that's sort of how I structured my approach to record keeping. I looked at what information the farm loans required or for funding for grants and different programs. What kind of information were they looking for? I also went through a lot of the tax documentation for the at the federal level and at the state level to see, well, what kind of information are they looking for? So it was very helpful when I was just first starting out to kind of think about what I was going to need the data for, especially the data that I plan to share. So moving forward, it shaped my approach to how I perceive farming. Now, by all means, you really don't need to have detailed records in order to plant, lovely plants or to care for animals or to do any of the things that you really want to do. But if you start to look at it as a business, and that's was the main like aha moment for me when I transitioned from it as a hobby into viewing it as a business, I had to begin to look at it with the record keeping lenses on, so to speak. And then when you identify what farming is for you for record keeping purposes, that will make it a lot easier to prioritize, especially if you're a small business such as I am, where I'm pretty much managing the majority of the task myself. You don't want to overextend, especially starting out. You want to get a record keeping regimen in place that you can manage that will work well for you. And then you want to continue to build upon that. So here's a little bit, I wasn't able to access the polls. I had a little bit of computer issues starting out. So I wanted to put this slide in here as sort of an interactive thing. So maybe we can use the chat. What do you think are the top selling ag products in Maryland? Anybody, just throw it in the chat. What do you think is like some of the top sellers in Maryland? And this is just kind of an idea to get you thinking in the mind frame of how important this data is, because the reality is this information is available online. And part of the reason why it's available online is because someone took the time to capture this information. You'll be able, once you put these processes in place, you'll be able to capture data similar to this and answer these sorts of questions. How much did your farm grow in the past 2 years? Or what was my best seller last year? These sorts of things. So let's take a look in the chat. Let's see. Poultry, eggs, corn. Yeah, yeah. Well, going in, I thought it was gonna be crabs because I mean, if you're from this area, then I expected crabs to be on the list. So I was a little shocked when it wasn't. I put a link in there to the website, and I'll share these slides with Kim. I put a link in the on the past slide to the actual website where I pulled this information, but it was basically a website that captured the data from 2017. And the top seller in Maryland is chicken, specifically broilers, corn, and soybean. And again, how do we know that? We know that because someone is taking the time to capture this information and make it available to us. Why is this important? I was able to identify some trends and some patterns in my own crops. And actually, if you want to take a stab at it, I'll open the chat back up and say, what do you think my top selling products were last season? And they were not on the Maryland top list. I don't even have any of those. I don't have any chickens or corn or soybeans. So my list is very different. But capturing data more and more each year, I'm able to begin to answer some of these questions. And that's actually how it started. Is I was at a market and someone asked me some very detailed questions about my business. And I was like, wow, I never thought anybody cared. So these types of things, as you grow and you expand and your network and everything, you'll begin to ask yourself these same questions. Well, how many plants did my seeds grow last year? And how much will I need to spend on seeds this year to grow twice as much as last year? These sorts of things are very important. So let's see what you thought. Herbs, greens, tomatoes. Yeah. Yeah. You know what, Renee? Apples, I just found out apples are apples and grapes are a very consistent crop here. But for me, it was greens. I can tell you specifically what my top producers were last season. Of the greens, kale and collards were the top producers, with watercress coming in a strong third. And in terms of the herbs, it was mint, chocolate mint, and oops, I misspelled ginger. I was rushing, sorry about that, but I will correct it. And that's supposed to be ginger mint. All right. Um, Moving on. Again, this is just reiterating, starting from the end with what your outcome is going to be when you begin to approach your data. What information do you feel like right now you're going to need to know that you don't know? That was a good start for me. And then you can just move forward as we continue to have these avenues and different networking events. Then we can begin to, I've learned a lot from others too. When I see different processes and procedures, and it helps me to know how I want to expand. In terms of activities, I capture, and I'm old school and I'm open to suggestions of anybody that knows a better way to do this. But every year I get one of these guys. I put the website up. It's a website on the inside of it. But I usually get it from Walmart and it's very thick. It has a page for each day. These are my lifesavers because I'm able to capture the information about what I'm doing, just pertinent business information. And it's got tabs in it, not to, but this is realistically how I'm doing it. I mean, I have some pages here that are just like, they're just, this is how I capture a lot of data with regards to my business stuff. Now I am a techie, so I have automated, and you'll see more as I get through the remainder of the talk, but the majority of the information that I need to capture in writing, I have in this, and this is very helpful. Now, in terms of like mileage, memberships, things like that, I capture a lot of that information by either, when I'm going somewhere, I'll note, what my start and end mileage is. Or if I know where I'm going, I'll just jot that down. Like I have a school that I work with. I know that it is approximately 12 miles one way. just from going so frequently. So I will make a note and say, okay, I went to the school today, and then I'll know, when it comes time to really kind of take a look at these numbers on a larger scale. Capturing any yearly, monthly trainings, that sort of thing, is very helpful. Like today, I knew I had this coming up, so I made sure that I made a note of it and I just take a look at this. I check in with this in the morning, check back in with it, when I'm getting started, to, kind of unwind to see, what notes, what dates do I need to add, that sort of thing is very helpful, very useful for me. But again, I'm open to any suggestions anyone may have. And then in terms of the virtual part of it, I don't know how I can move this. Let me see if I can move this over. Okay, so the virtual part of it, I have my website, which is primonoir.com through Wix, and their booking platform is very extensive. If any of you already have, I can't, advocate for it because I know there's a lot of comparable programs out there. So you may have something similar in your current website. They have a booking platform where you are able to set up on-site and virtual meetings, consultations, workshops, all that. So I utilize that very heavily for the electronic piece. Anything that's not required for me to write down in this book. If I'm booking something online, especially like a Zoom or something, I will get an automated notification sent out to the the customer that way. I also utilize Google Calendar. So these are very helpful in capturing activities, even if it's not a full event. You can make a note to yourself, sort of like a tickler or just a tracker, just to say, okay, I did this on that day. And that usually works very well for me in terms of capturing activities. Now, expenses, that's another area that you're going to want to know what exactly is taking place. I mean, if I have to say what I spent on January 18th, 2019, I have no idea. But there are some times in the business side where you're going to need to find out. As long as you're able to find out, you should be okay. So let's look at how to move towards being able to put this information at your fingertips. I was there where I had this big, huge plastic bag of receipts that I had to try to make some sense of at the end of the year. And I just got tired. So I started with the phone. I'll use my tablet sometimes, I'll use my phone, but at least I started out weekly because monthly just didn't work well for me initially, but now I kind of have it down to a science. So I do it more so monthly now, where I will revisit the images that I've captured. But the main problem that I ran into and how I arrived here is I would have receipts that I would have the receipt, but I couldn't make out what it said, just because of it just sitting. Sometimes the words aren't legible and things like that. If you capture the image of it, I would say at the latest, probably like within the month or so, then you can still, have a legitimate, a good clean copy of it usually. And then if you notice, sometimes I've gotten receipts where they hand it to you and I don't know, sometimes it's running out of ink or whatever. Just ask them to reprint you another one. Now, in terms of the reporting part, um, I have a hard drive that has a pretty decent amount of space on it, and it was roughly about $50 or $60, and it is the lifesaver. But you can also use Google Drive. I basically just, I just sit there like a day or two and just put all of these different files in there. I also try to capture email receipts. Anything that I feel that's pertinent for like tax purposes or for reporting purposes on my end, then I always try to capture that. Any type of, I always capture my time as well. So paid and unpaid virtual workshops, things like that. I always try to capture that. I haven't had a use for that information yet, but if I ever do, I will, be able to pull that. Now, in terms of planting, was very, very, oops, it didn't, my slide didn't it didn't update again. So I'll just go back and make sure I do that one. In terms of planting, my key part that I wanted to capture was what did I plant versus what actually came up, right? So, oh, is it duplicated my slides? I'm sorry. Hang on, let me go back. While I'm trying to organize that, let me just continue with what I wanted to present. In terms of planting, one of the key ways that I like to capture data is to look at exactly what I put in the ground versus what came up. That is always very helpful for me because I'm still growing as a farmer, and I like to know, like, in terms of my seed sources. I have various different seed sources, so I am looking forward to supporting Fatima, and I like to know that information for personal reasons. I like to know what seeds did I get that came up. I have some seeds that I saved from things that I've grown. So when I plant, I actually try to capture it throughout the phases so that I know what actually came up, what didn't. Um, let's see, let me get back to my slides here. But basically, I have a seed tray map that I wanted to share with you all. I have a blank one, and I'll send you the link to that as well. Um, the blank one I just got off of the internet and I just kind of improved upon it. And I had a picture of I had a picture of one that I completed that I wanted to share with you. Okay, this looks like it. There it is. Okay, so but before I get to that, in terms of sharing data, my most preferred way to share data is through Google Drive. It gives you an option to personalize via email who you would like to make a document available to. And a lot of the documentation that I don't want to put like on social media or on an email, like um, a group email, or it just you just don't want to like put it on your website or anything. You want to share it individually. The Google Drive gives me the opportunity to be able to do that comfortably. I don't really like sharing like certain information. Like I have a seed list that is actually one of my most frequently requested, is probably the most popular document that I've shared. That document, I have it on Google Drive. Anytime I'm talking to someone and they want to know, well, what kind of stuff are you growing? I just ask them for their email, make them accessible to them, and they can pull it up whenever they get ready. Or there's a document share option where you can provide them with a link. They will, whenever they click on that link, you can give them access to it, and then you can do it like that. So in terms of my recommendation of sharing your data once you capture it, I will recommend Google Drive. Oh, there it is. So fun fact, I have a seed listing that I created, and it gives me the option to be able to share this document. Again, like I said, I'm going to share these slides since I'm having such a tough time with get providing them to you. And this is my list from last year. So as you can see, there's a Google document here. And what I've done is I just simply make a copy of it in Google Drive and update it each year. I've used this list for it's got to be at least 3 or 4 years now. And it's very helpful in terms of keeping up. It lets me know, well, what did I have last year that I didn't have? So I have a record on my end of everything that I've grown over the past few years and the seeds and everything like that. I have a hard copy that I make a note of what items I'm not able to, because I don't just add to the list. Sometimes I take some items off. So this has been extremely helpful. Like I said, this is probably one of the most requested and the most useful documents that I have. That I have. Um, for some reason. Okay, so let's talk about revenue. This is a really spicy topic now since taxes have changed and people are really uncomfortable about this entire, reporting at $600 thing versus the 20,000. And I would just like to encourage everyone that is viewing today that you can get through that. If that's going to impact you as approaching your farming as a business versus a hobby, then don't be intimidated because there are tools in place. I prefer to use a combination. Each of the payment systems that I use have reporting functions. So I do use the Wix online platform for payments as well. So everything that sells on my website, it provides me with reports that I can query and drill down. It gives me specific information and what I'm usually looking for. I'm usually looking for a date, the payment amount, the item or items that were purchased, and I typically want to have like what the range of the taxes and shipping, et cetera, the other costs associated with that purchase. Um, Square gives me a different set of information. I actually use Square for on-site transactions. So those are both card purchases and I use it to document cash. Everybody, it's a preference. Everybody usually has like some type of system, especially if you're doing the markets. But I actually gleaned that from the capital market in my partnering with them. I didn't know that you could capture cash transactions that way. And so once I learned that, I said, well, this is going to be a great way for me to be able to provide a better customer service to my clients. And it helped me actually build my online platform because when you do the Square and you ask your customer, would you like a receipt? Some people do, or some people will, they want you to, hey, well, can you email it to me or can you text it to me? And that just continues to build your network that way. But it helped me because now I no longer have to try to capture this at the end of a hot, sweaty market. Say, okay, well, how much exactly cash did I start with? How much did I get? How much change did I get? That sort of thing. It captures all that. It allows you at the transaction to say, if it's a $10 transaction and someone gave you $20, you can actually capture that. And so that was very helpful to me. At the end of the market, you can look at it and say, okay, well, what was my report for today? At the end of the year, you can look at this and say, well, what was my report for this year? It also gives you the option to enter payment information. So if you want to capture Cash App, you can do that. If someone is paying you by Cash App, you can go in Square and say, I accepted a Cash App transaction. So when you get ready to report, you can do all of that and have it at, at your fingertips a lot easier. I'll put it that way. When it comes time to, I don't want to speak too much on taxes because I'm not a tax professional, but I will say, my approach to it was I sat down and I had a conversation with my tax professional. What information do you need that is going to make this easy? What's going to make this painless? What's important? What's valuable to my farm? So don't be nervous about that conversation. Now is a great time to have it, honestly, because you can start 2022 off strong, Now in terms of reporting and planning, having the data from last year and the year before and the year before that is almost essential to trying to get any type of funding. They're going to ask you these sorts of questions. Having a strong business plan, you have to capture revenue. If you don't capture anything else, you have to capture that. In terms of loans, financing, any of that. When you're looking to do business with people, you really want to be able to answer those money questions. So like I said, this is like definitely an area where I'm open to suggestions. And like I said, this is just the formula that I've come up with, and it's on a small scale and that I've been able to manage it because I mean, if things grow I'd like to know more about how it can be managed on a larger scale. I'm hoping and praying that everyone's farm business just explodes this year. But I also want to make sure that we have these systems in place to be able to count and report all this money we're gonna get. So I am going to open the Q&A portion, or I can sit low in the chat. I'm going to be here for the remainder of I want to turn everything over to Stephanie, because I don't want to impede on her time, but I do want to say I will forward this information, the slides that I want to share with you. I'll forward those to Kim so everyone can look at them and enjoy them and get this information. And I apologize for the mishap with my presentation, but I will definitely share those with you so that you can take a look at them at your convenience. And thanks again for allowing me to present.
Felice, as always, thank you so much for sharing so much and presenting for us tonight. We really appreciate you. No worries about the presentation snafus with technology. It happens more than we would like for it to happen, especially in this, virtual environment. Some great advice. So I'll give folks maybe just a couple of minutes for any burning questions. We're gonna have a larger Q&A at the end, but I know there, if there's someone that needs to jump off before, we have the Q&A at the end, please feel free to either drop your question in the chat box. And if there's anyone on the call that's new to Zoom, at the bottom of your screen, like in the middle, there's like a little call out box and it says chat. So feel free to click on that and type your question in the chat box, or you can use the raise hand feature as Stephanie has done. And the raise hand feature is a couple over from the chat feature and it says reactions. And if you click on reactions, you'll see your smiley faces and hearts and all that good stuff. And at the bottom, there's a raise hand feature. So feel free to go ahead and do that. All right, Stephanie.
Yeah, thanks. So Felice, you were describing your pile of receipts at the end of the year, and I was like, that sounds like my life right now, because I tolerate a little bit too much chaos. And I guess I was wondering, you said you save pictures, is there an app that you use, or you're literally just taking pictures with your phone and then you're saving it in a folder in a drive?
That is exactly it. And like I said, my tax professional actually encouraged me. I saw Linda put a message in there about QuickBooks. I have not used it, but I'm considering it because I think they have a feature where you can upload your receipts, I guess, into a cloud-based situation. But yes, literally taking pictures of it and saving it on a hard drive I'll have, so my filing system will say 2022. I'll have January 2022, February, and I just kind of save it like that. In terms of the reporting piece, I more so go through and pull those expenses out, for whatever I need them for to say tax purposes. You got to say, okay, well, I spent this, I need this, like that. But yeah, the actual files, yeah. I just, because after that big bag of receipts, when I couldn't read half of them and I know I left money on the table, I started taking pictures. So just take some pictures and save them. I guess, like I said, that's unless QuickBooks is the answer. I don't know. We need to hear from Linda.
It is. And I'd like to say something about those receipts. What happens, that ink that's on those little thin receipts, if it gets hot, it's gone. It turns into a black mass. So soon as you get them, even if you can do it before you get out of the store, do it, because if not, unless you do it on a credit card and it's captured someplace else, you don't have a record. So just just don't leave your receipt on the car, or don't get it wet because it's gone.
I want to piggyback on what Linda said, because in the past, when we got receipts globally, we got receipts that were made out of paper, not that thermal paper. And that changes everything, because in a 30-day time frame, you buy something at one of the big box stores, and when you try to take it back because you're within your time frame, they'll tell you can't do it, And I said, well, this is your receipt. You told me 30 days, and this is what the challenge is. And the gentleman explained, this was decades ago. He says, well, remember when we used to have paper? You never had that problem. He said, these thermal receipts, and Linda's spot on. If you touch it and your hands are hot, it's a wrap. So you want to not just take the picture. One of the programs I used in the past, and taking the picture is awesome because you can crop it and you can put it where you need to put it. But Neat Receipts, I'm not sure if they are in existence right now, but they had two different programs. One was a desk Neat Receipts that sat on your desk, and one was something that you travel with. And a travel Neat receipt, which I loved when I was in social services, because whatever receipts I had, you could scan it immediately and it would save it. So when you get back to your desk, you connect it and then everything uploads. And then and it will put it in a category. If you bought seeds and you set up your categories in advance. So it will put it to whatever category you would designate. Or it might just read and say, hey, this is nursery, and it will go straight to the nursery to a particular category for supplies. But I just wanted to share that because sometimes now what's happening with people too is that they realize that they had a really good product, and before there wasn't a charge for it, and now it becomes an annual charge where, like, Microsoft never charged before. They gave you the hard disk, and if your computer died, you upload it again and life is good. Now they want you to pay annually for it. So I'm not sure what else is out here, but I know Neat Receipts. I could stand by it because I used it for many years in the past.
Thanks for that, Renee. And I don't know, I know, Terry, I know you use QuickBooks on the daily as well. I don't know if you have anything to add to the discussion.
No, I just agree with everything that they're saying. Yes, you can copy receipts. I know it is a problem with thermal paper. I learned that the hard way when I had to give receipts to the auditor at the end of the year, and also putting them in your purse for some reason, even if it's there for like a week, the ink starts to disappear. We tried to get to a point where we were putting receipts on copier paper and just taping it there. Tape will make the ink disappear even faster. I don't know what it is with the reaction, but definitely QuickBooks is the way to just copy and put it to whatever receipt that is in QuickBooks, and you're good to go.
Thanks, Terry. We'll hit the pause on the questions for now, just so we can make sure we have enough time for Stephanie to present. But thank you again so much, Felice. And I don't know if there's anything additional you want to say about your plans or like anything about your business. I know you dropped your website in the chat box, but if there's any promotionals that you have coming up, please feel free to share. Otherwise, I would say folks definitely follow her on social media because she's always doing something fun and goofy. I love Felice's accounts, so. All right. Well, thanks again. And without further ado, Stephanie with Berwyn Farm is going to present as well. So Stephanie, why don't you go ahead and take it away? And if anyone has questions for Stephanie as we're moving through her presentation, feel free to go ahead and put those in the chat box.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Stephanie Young. I am the sole farmer at Berwyn Farm. My husband helps out sometimes, but it's the tax keeping, the record keeping, all that stuff, that's me. I do all the farming outside too. We have like 1/10 of an acre. So that's 0.1 acres in our front yard that we're farming. We do a small CSA, like 5 to 10 people, depending on the season. And we also sell at the farmers market in College Park. We're in Berwyn Heights, which is next to College Park. People always ask where we are. We're essentially College Park. We do mainly vegetable production, but we do some cut flowers as well. I also do some like crafting. And so I sell like handmade cards and handmade soaps at the farmers market and stuff. That's always like really nice around like holiday times, like for Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, Christmas, like those types of like value added products are really nice during those times of year. But today I'm actually going to talk about crop planning. I don't have a beautiful presentation like Felice's. I'm literally just going to like throw you into some spreadsheets that I have. I'm a spreadsheet person, sometimes to a fault, like I'll have too many spreadsheets and no one else can follow them. So I've tried to simplify them a little bit so we can like go through step by step and see like what on earth it is that I'm thinking as I go through and plan for what I'm actually going to plant for the rest of the year. And going into this, I'm assuming that I'm going to be farming the space. I have 1/10 of an acre. I'm maximizing the space for vegetables that I'm selling. But if you're a gardener, like this might look a little bit different for you. So instead of doing 1/10 of an acre, if you're doing 100 square feet, you would definitely be scaling this down. Instead of growing, 25 bed feet of lettuce, like maybe you only have a few heads or so. So let me just share my screen so you can see what these spreadsheets look like. I use Google Sheets mostly because it allows me to access them anywhere I am with internet. And it also means that like if, so like my husband helps out sometimes, like if I can share something with him and then he can go out and plant something for me, it's a lot easier because this is just there in the cloud internet ether. So when I'm crop planning, my first thought as a farmer is, what do I want to sell and when do I want to sell it? I'm kind of starting from like the end goal in mind and then working backwards. Now I'm definitely constrained by like the time of year, right? I'm not going to be growing tomatoes in March, but I do think that like I'll be growing them in July and August. Like that will be my main production time. And luckily I've already done a full year of growing and selling at the farmer's market. And so like I'm not working from square one. I kind of have a template of what my selling year is going to look like. So what I did at the very beginning of my crop planning for this year is I thought to myself, like, what did I sell last year? And when did I sell it? So I've blocked out every week for the entire season. So I have like 52 weeks here. And I figure, in May, I can sell radishes. I can bring my microgreens to market. I can be growing cilantro. My peas will be coming in. Now I know the peas will be coming in this time of year because I had them coming in this time of year last year. So it really helps to have already grown in order to do this planning. If you don't have a year worth of growing as a background, then what you might do is you might start from, say you want to grow lettuce, right? So say you want to plant some like baby lettuce mix. So I like Johnny's. That's just because I can buy in bulk there. So I might go to see, maybe I want to buy this all-star gourmet lettuce mix and I'll see like, okay, it's going to take me 28 days to get this to mature. And that's going to be what I work from is that days to maturity. Now you'd have to do a little bit of research. There are some crops that like you can grow when it's cold out, like lettuce, I can grow before the last frost. If I'm growing tomatoes, I'm certainly, like I said, I'm not going to plant those in March. So you'd want to make sure that you know which crops can take a frost and which crops cannot. So things like tomatoes, peppers, cantaloupes, squashes, those cucumbers, those cannot take a frost. You're going to look up your first frost date. Mine, it says, is April 11th. And so I'd want to make sure that if I'm planting a tomato or a cantaloupe or something like that, that I'm not planning on putting the plant in the ground until this day. You can be a little bit riskier if you've got like some row covers or something, or if you're growing in some sort of like either like a mini greenhouse, a caterpillar tunnel, any sort of covered space, you can kind of push it a little
small
bit.
scale cloches are very good for that type of like mini greenhouse situation. A cloche.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, anything that's covered, really, like any form of like covered space, you can kind of push your growing back a little bit. Anything that heats the soil a little bit. So something like a cucumber really wants warm soil. So even just putting down like a tarp or like a black plastic, there is like the landscape fabric is usually black, like putting that down can warm the soil up and allow you to plant a little bit earlier. So that's kind of the thing to keep in mind is that last frost date is going to be pretty important, and it's going to kind of separate when you can plant those more long-term crops like a tomato in the ground. So here I kind of plan out what I want to grow or what I want to be selling, and let's take lettuce, for example, because lettuce is the crop that we grow the most. Like I know Felice was talking about greens, and I was thinking to myself, like lettuce is the thing that I grow the most of. So I want to make sure that I always have at least 2 full beds of lettuce ready to harvest every single week. If you're a home grower, that might mean that like you want to make sure that you have, 2 head lettuces that are ready for harvest every week. Instead of 2 beds, it's like 2 single heads of lettuce. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, once I've got this set up, I'm going to go to another spreadsheet that I have. All of these rows, each of these is actually a bed of mine. And I have like dimensions here just for my personal reference, because I have a few beds that are not standard. So I like to kind of remind myself that those beds are not 25 feet. We have a small unheated greenhouse, those beds are actually 18 feet. So here, I like to go back pretty far. Like I'm actually not gonna be planting things in February 6th, but it's a nice way to remind myself, like what is still in the ground right now? Like right now I have garlic in the ground that I planted in the fall. And it's a good reminder for me that like, there's something in the ground that's growing through the winter. So like February 6th is still my winter crops. And then I kind of personally like March 1st as like a good starting planting date. It's a good planting date for getting a lot of greens in the ground. For me, someone who's like trying to bring crops to market, my market is usually open around May 1st. My CSA I have starting around the middle of April or the end of April. So somewhere in there, and I want to make sure that I have crops ready to pull out of the ground. So that gives me a good like month and a half to 2 months to get a lot of my crops to like harvestable time. And so I was talking about the lettuce. So I said over here, this is the lettuce that I'm planting, this All-Star Gourmet lettuce mix. It's 28 days to maturity. That 28 days is in ideal conditions. So that's if like the moisture is great and the sunshine is perfect. Like there's not too much rain. It's not too cold. It's not too cloudy. It's not like too hot, right? So like this might not be true if it's like the middle of the summertime. So this is kind of like a good ballpark. So about a month for this lettuce. And so I'm going to plant maybe some of my first rounds, here at the end of February, because it's my most profitable crop. I want to make sure that I have actually too much lettuce. I'd rather have too much lettuce than not enough. So I'm going to plant it here. And I'm actually saying that because I'm planting it at the beginning of March, the end of February here, I'm actually going to give it an extra 2 weeks to grow, because maybe I get it in late. I am notorious to myself for not planting on schedule. So I like to give myself an extra week. Maybe I planted a week late. Maybe I don't get the compost load in time, but I like to give myself a little bit extra time, especially early on in the season when things are cold and conditions are not ideal. So I gave myself about a month and a half to get this lettuce out. And I know from experience that I can harvest this bed of lettuce about every other week. So here I'm saying for this lettuce, I'm going to plant it a month and a half later, I can get my first cut. And then 2 weeks after that, I can cut again. That's what the green is. I'm highlighting for myself that like, this is a day or a week when like, I'm going to be able to pull lettuce out of this bed. It also reminds me that like, I should not expect lettuce from this bed on April 24th because I harvested from it the week before, which means then I've got to find another place to plant lettuce where I can harvest on April 10th and April 24th. So doing this, like starting crop by crop, like taking your most important crop and making sure that you have enough of it. So like for Felice, it might be her collards and her kale, right? She's going to make sure that she has a lot of collards and kale planted because those are the things that sell. She's going to make sure that her mint is in a container, right? Because it spreads everywhere, but like she's got enough of those containers of mint because she knows that's the thing that's going to sell. And once I've got things like lettuce in, for my long-term crops, those are also usually some of the first things that go in because I know my tomatoes are going to go in on, my last frost date is around April 11th. That's what Farmer's Almanac says. I'm probably going to plant around April 10th or April 17th. It depends on where you're planting. Again, if you're planting in like a greenhouse, you can plant a lot earlier. If you're planting out in a field with like no coverage whatsoever, maybe you don't want to risk a possible frost at the end of April. I think it was 2 years ago, we got a frost on like May 8th. So, these dates they're they're guesstimates. They're not perfect. And it's based on climatological data from, I think the almanac says 1981 to 2010. So anybody that grows food knows that maybe that data is not up to date anymore. And so if you have like a reference point from the past few years to guide you, that might be a little bit more helpful. I always just choose the middle of April because it's good enough for me. It's worked in the past. And if it gets to be too cold, I have thrown frost covers over tomatoes. I literally 2 years ago, I emptied my linen closet of all of my sheets and blankets, covered all of my tomatoes. It looked ridiculous, but all my tomatoes survived. So like if you plant a little bit early, you can always find a way around it. That's my experience as someone who likes living with a little bit of chaos. So like down here, this is my high tunnel. This is where my tomatoes go. So I'm putting my tomatoes in April 17th. That's what my plan says. And I know that because of like the height restrictions on there, I can get maybe like 4 rows of tomatoes. And then I'm going to put some cucumbers on the edges. With high tunnels, things like peppers are also great on the edges because they're pretty short. And then those things are just going to live there for the rest of the season. So putting in like those long-term things that are going to take a while, like those are really good to put in first, at least for me. And then if there's locational restrictions, so say something like my peas need a trellis, I'm only going to put trellises on certain edges of my beds because of the sunlight, right? I don't want to put my peas on the southern side of my beds because then it will block all that light to my other beds. So I can only put peas on like this one bed in this one plot that I have along like the fence of my house. So I'll figure out like what needs to be trellised and put it in those beds where I can trellis things. So let's see. Anything that's like a high priority crop that needs to go in first. Anything that is like a long-term crop that you're going to have in a space for a long period of time, that needs to go in first or second. And then anything that's got like locational issues. So for me, like trellising is a big issue because I don't have a lot of space. I see some questions popping up. Are these questions?
I think just a couple of comments in the chat box, so we can get to those when you're done.
Okay. So then what I'll do once I've got those like 3 things in is I'm just going to start to plug stuff in, right? I know arugula is going to take about a month. So I might put in, and maybe I only want 1 bed of arugula each week. So like maybe I'll start planting arugula here on like this side bed right here. Right. And so I would put in arugula. And then if I can harvest it after, you know, the 4 weeks, then I'm harvesting it here. Now, you'll learn this through experience and also through like stories, right? So certain crops you can, like lettuce, I can harvest 2, 3, 4 times depending on the season. I can just cut it and then come back again in 2 weeks and cut it again and do that a couple times. Something like arugula, I can usually get like 2, maybe 3 cuts out of it. You can get more if you like let it grow big, like big leaf arugula is, you can just keep picking it. But if you're using it as like baby greens, you can only get like 2 cuts out of it. So maybe I plan to have arugula until then, and then I pull it out. And then I got to remember that like, oh, wait, I need arugula. I actually need that every single week. So maybe I'll plant some a week later. And so now you can see I can pick arugula every single week. There are times when like I've only got a few weeks between things, or so the example here in one of my beds, I have like lettuces that I planted. I'm planting head lettuces, which take a little bit longer than the baby greens. And in between them, I've got maybe like a month and a half, maybe about 2 months in between that and some other lettuces. And it's a time of the year in the middle of the summer when it's really hot out. Like, I don't want to be planting a lot of like shorter season crops. Like radishes don't really grow well in the summer. A lot of my greens don't do as well during the summer. And so like, it's kind of hard to find something that goes in there. So I just threw some bush beans in here because my customers love bush beans. They're not super profitable because they don't produce as much as I would need. And customers aren't really willing to pay the high price that I would need for this product, growing it on such a small urban acreage that I have. But if I'm not going to be growing anything anyways, I might as well throw in something like a bush bean, which is going to help. It's going to help the soil. Having the soil covered in any way is better than not having it at all. So like, even if I don't end up using this crop, like I could plant a short cover crop. I am not the person to ask about cover crops because I'm always just shoving other food crops in there. But like, I know there's many cover crops that like you can choose for that time. So if you've got a month and a half, like you could put in, I think alfalfa I've heard is like, it's pretty quick. Like you can do that. I know like tillage radishes and things like that. So definitely try and keep your soil covered. The other thing is this was like my lean plan. I pulled a bunch of stuff out to kind of show you how I'm going to plan, you know, the lettuce, the arugula, things like that. This is my full plan for the whole year. And I cannot look at this in one go, right? I'm probably going to print this out like a month at a time and then post it on the wall so I can visually see it. But what you'll see is like, there are times when there are gaps, like this whole bed, there's a gap here. And I could try and force something in there, but I already have enough arugula in the plan. I already have enough lettuce in the plan. I already have enough bush beans in the plan, radishes in the plan. And so what I might do is I might leave that open because the plan might actually change. This is all ideal. This is if everything goes according to plan. And as anybody who has ever experienced the weather in Maryland knows, there's no such thing as a plan here. And there are plenty of times when I plant something and it doesn't germinate. And so now I've got this huge spot open for a month and a half. What do I do with it? So having holes is not a bad thing. You just have to be a little bit flexible moving forward and trying to figure out like what you could put in there and trying to keep in mind like, okay, radishes do really well in the spring and the fall. And if I've got like a random 3 to 5 weeks, I can just throw some in there. I think the last thing that I wanted to talk about, which I haven't really pointed out in here, is the idea of interplanting. So interplanting is the idea of planting more than one crop at the same time. That could mean that there was that lettuce example where I had the bush beans going in, and I actually was planning on planting the bush beans a couple weeks before the head lettuces came out. So like it would take time for the beans to germinate and really get any height. And then by the time they actually got big enough, I'd be taking the lettuce out. So you can plant things, you can kind of overlap their plantings, or things like green onions. I am plugging those in anywhere I can. Like I'll plant 3 rows of head lettuces, and in between every single row of lettuce, I will also plant green onions. Other things that are great for interplanting are radishes because they're really quick and they don't take up a lot of root space. So people talk about interplanting radishes with carrots all the time because carrots take forever if you can get them to germinate, and radishes take like no time at all. So trying to think about like ways to maximize your space in that way, where you're trying to like put these 2 companions together because they either help each other. So like you can talk about how certain flowers attract bugs that will keep pests away from your tomatoes or cucumbers, or you can talk about things like green onions and lettuce, that they don't compete for the same space in the soil, and they're taking different things out of the soil. And so they work really well together because you can maximize the use of that space. I like using basil as an interplanted species because everybody loves basil. If you have too much basil at the end of the year, just like throw it in the freezer and make pesto all winter long. It's great. I love it. I know Michelle was talking about edible flowers. A lot of edible flowers are also really good for interplanting. So things like nasturtiums do really well as like an interplanted plant underneath like a cucumber or something, because they do actually help with that like pest control, but also you can sell them as edible flowers. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to point out. I think that's kind of how I go into this. Oh, and then I guess one last thing is like, once you have this plan, if you've got things like tomatoes or like my head lettuces are transplanted, then how do I take this plan and turn it into like a list of things that I need to put in a seed tray this week? So what I'll do is add another sheet to my spreadsheet, and I'll go through and I'll figure out like, how many plantings of bok choy am I going to do? And then I'll write down like the date that I want it to be transplanted. This date comes directly from that other spreadsheet. So I'll go through and see like, okay, I want to be planting this outside on this date. And then I'll just use my spreadsheet to literally, what I can do is I can tell the spreadsheet that like, take whatever this date is and subtract 21 days. So like, I want to seed this thing, and then 3 weeks later, I want to be planting it out into the field. So this is like another type of spreadsheet that I use to figure out what needs to get planted. It's nice because then I can like leave myself notes, right? So 2 to 4 weeks after seeding, that's because that's what the Johnny's website tells me, that I should be seeding it 2 to 4 weeks before I plant it outside. I took the average 3 weeks. We'll see if it works this year. If not, I may change it next year. This is not like a comprehensive list for me because I have to like finish it I've only gone through like May 1st. But I like to do this in chunks. So in a couple weeks, I'll start thinking about like what needs to get planted after May. So like I said, there are holes in that plan that I have in that schedule. And so those holes will allow me to be a little bit flexible if like, you know, the cucamelons don't grow, or if they grow slower, then like, as long as there's flexibility in your plan, then like it makes it easier to like work with the unintended things that happen with the weather or the soil or things like that. Okay. That feels like a lot. Are there any questions?
That was awesome, Stephanie. If folks have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box. There are a few comments in there, Stephanie, that you may want to take a look at in terms of like row covers and some things that people are doing. Yeah. And then, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So I was going to say, I saw, is it Renee's got her hand up?
Yes. Thank you, Stephanie. This was a great presentation. You actually took me back to my compliance days. I was like, oh my God, spreadsheets. I was living for this. But it's I guess in terms of its feasibility moving forward, this is my question. The type of plants that you use, are you consistently using the same type, or are you changing varieties? Because what I do every year, I plant 5 new things every year. And in doing it this way, there's a little bit of variability I would have. So I'm trying to get that part of my brain to figure out how it could be trackable here, because it's not necessarily something I would do every year. Like the lettuce that you buy, is it just that type of lettuce that you're growing? Or I would grow like 4 different types of X, you know? And so that's my question.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I like your idea of like try 5 new things every year. And that's usually what I will do is I've got like my standard things. Like I showed the all-star lettuce, that through trial and error, I've grown a couple different types of lettuce. Like that's the lettuce that I want to grow as like my baby lettuce, because it works in all types of weather. Like I have through experience learned that that's the one that I like. And so I'll do just that one. But like I grew bok choy last year, and the varieties that I grew, I really didn't like them. They didn't do well later on into the summer. And I was really looking for a variety of bok choy that would grow better into the summer, that wouldn't bolt as fast. And I was watching a YouTube video of someone who like lives in similar conditions to us with less water. And they were saying like, oh, you should try this joy choy, bok choy. So like this variety. So this is my new thing this year, is I'm going to try this because I can grow bok choy. I like growing that, but I need something that does a little bit better in our summer heat. So
Joy Choy is awesome. I've grown it, and it is a prolific producer, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time, and it's really fun and soft.
Yeah, I mean, I've only heard great things about it. I'm just happy to have anything that I can grow longer into the summer, because we get so hot so early here that I'm always like trying to push my crops a little bit too far. Let's see. I see Jamila in the chat. You asked, how much time does the row cover buy you? Would that give you 2 weeks or a month jump on the season? It depends on the crop, and it depends on like how cold it is. Like I was saying with the 2 years ago, I remember the last frost was May 8th. And I was throwing up like row covers and like sheets and blankets, because I didn't have enough row cover to do like all of my tomatoes. And so they were planted 3 weeks before that last frost. So I would say that they could maybe buy you like 3 to 4 weeks. I wouldn't say that I'm aiming to plant my tomatoes 3 to 4 weeks before the last frost, with row covers being like the one stopgap to get them through. I think it's more of like an emergency blanket, you will. But it definitely helps. Like I would probably say maybe like a week or two if you're trying to be on the safe side.
Thanks, that's helpful.
I think that's the only other question I see in the chat.
If there are any other questions for Stephanie, yeah, feel free to use the raise hand function, or you can just shout it out. We're a small enough group this evening.
Yeah, I asked Stephanie because I just feel like I'm very impatient and I like to push the envelope. And so it's good to know like your like philosophy regarding like row covers.
Yeah, I'm a risk taker. I'm always trying to plant things a little bit too early. So I say go for it. Seeds, for the most part, compared to a lot of things, are cheap. I mean, it may not feel like it when you're buying a specialty cucumber seed for like 50 cents, but they are relatively cheap. And so if you buy extra, you can always just plan to plant out a bunch early, and then have some like backups for if that fails. And worst case scenario, you sell those extras as seedlings.
Any other questions for Stephanie?
I have a question for you, Stephanie. How long did it take you to do that spreadsheet?
It takes me several days to get up the nerve to start. And then it maybe only takes me about like a good like 8-hour day to like do all of it. Cause for me, like I have to just sit down and focus. Like I'm sitting down with my list of seeds, and I'm sitting down with like my catalogs, and I that's all I do for about like 8 hours. I do that. And I always save it for the winter when I'm hiding from the outside cold anyways.
Thank you.
We should also mention that Stephanie is a math teacher, correct?
I'm formally a math teacher. I left my job at the end of the year. I'm actually I'm covering a paternity leave right now. So I'm a math teacher for the next 5 weeks. But yes, I am formally trained as a math thinking person. And so spreadsheets are like my game.
And thank you for sharing your game with us.
That was awesome, Stephanie. And really appreciate you and Felice coming on tonight to share, some of your tricks. I know it's really nice when people share, because I mean, this group has always been so cooperative and not, competitive in terms of, the tools that they use. And so I really appreciate that, because I know that's a lot of detail and effort that you went into. So it's nice for you to be able to share that with other folks in this group, give them some ideas. So I don't know, I wanted to say quickly hi to, let's see, Terry Spate. I'm saying Terry because we have another Terry on the line. Hi to Terry, Alicia, Arman, and Saudi. I know you guys joined us partway through the presentation, so we didn't get to say hello to you, but welcome. It's good to see you faces. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to add to the discussion? We do have a few short announcements and just a couple of questions to ask you all, but I wanted you guys to have a few more minutes to continue the discussion on record keeping and, the different things that have worked for you.
Can anyone talk about the sale? Like I'm gonna be honest about the taxes. Can anybody talk about the taxes and how that works with reporting and paying that? I'm gonna be vulnerable and say like that's not my strong suit.
Jamil, do you have a sales and use tax account with the state comptroller's office?
I do.
Okay. That's the one you're talking about? Filing it or just collecting taxes?
Yeah, like I guess I'm not clear like on what all, like is that the only thing I'm filing? Am I filing other stuff? And like, do you guys do it? I feel like it's supposed to be done quarterly, but they seem to be pretty flexible. Like I don't know. I would like to know like how you guys do it if you feel comfortable sharing.
Well, with food, to my understanding, I think somebody just popped something up in the chat too. You don't pay taxes on food, but for, say, if you have a value added product that's not an item you eat, you would pay the 6% Maryland taxes on it. And what happens is you can do it one or two ways. When you sell items, you can already have the tax added in there, just charging one price. And at the end of the year, what you do, you would pay the sales tax on whatever you sold, 6% of that. So if you sold food items that were worth, say, $500, and you sold non-food items that were $600, you pay the 6% sales tax on the $600 for the non-food items. So another thing that popped up in the chat as well. Let me see what that was. Nursery seedlings too. So yeah, anything that you're not eating, it's or prescription. In Maryland, DC, and Virginia, as far as I know, there's no tax on groceries that are foods that you eat, and there's no tax on prescription medicine, but everything else you pay taxes on. And you file that with the state on a quarterly basis. So there should be some forms that you submit on a quarterly basis for your taxes. And you can call the comptroller's office too. They'll help you to figure that out. So, and if you don't pay it, they'll send you a notice saying, "Hey, we have you on the record as a business XYZ, and we need you to file stuff." And then you can file. It's not a lot. Believe me, it's not a lot. Say $100, what you're paying, like whatever the 20% is. I mean, 6. I'm sorry. Excuse me. So it's not a lot, but just keep on top of it, quarterly basis if you can.
I have a question. I had a business and I understand doing taxes with that. This is a little bit different. So I get that there's none with food, and I just read Stephanie's message in the chat that seedlings are taxable.
It's a non-food item until it becomes. See, this is like a microgreen too. That's the other thing.
Yeah, but that's why that's what I was coming to ask, because if it's
right, it's kind of, that's a weird one.
If it's considered a microgreen, is it food?
Microgreens are food. You do not pay sales tax on them. My understanding is fresh flowers, you do not pay sales tax on that. Now, if you dry those flowers and turn them into a wreath, you do pay sales tax on that.
So that's weird. Some of that stuff is tricky.
Yeah, but for this farming piece, I know they have books for other business entities, and they're very
Mhm.
specific, and it provides you some clarification. Is there anything like that for this?
I'm quite sure the state does have something. We can research it and see what's out there, but every business has a set of fine print things that you have to look at. So that'll be something that we can try to. I'll look and see if I can find anything, or I'll call the comptroller's office to find out what particular rates are there for some of the things that we'll be doing. I know I pay taxes on most of my stuff because it is non-food, except for some items which I don't sell, which I sell, but they still get taxed anyway, like the teas, which are made from the plants, which is taxable. Both of those are taxable. So, yep.
Well, the $600
Hmm.
is the threshold that you have to make $600, and
No, no,
then
no, no. I was just saying that if you sold something for $600, you would pay the 5% tax on it as long as if it's not a food item. Like
no,
say for
no,
soaps, if I
I
sold,
remember.
Oh, you know what? I think, are you talking about the change to the reporting for
Yes,
$600?
no,
yes,
no, no. That's something totally
That's what
different.
I think she's talking about.
yes.
Oh, tell me
The
about the $600. What's this?
the payment apps have changed their reporting threshold. It used to be
Hmm.
20,000
Hmm.
to 600.
Oh yeah,
So yeah,
like the what you call it, like PayPal and all those people.
yeah,
Once you hit,
PayPal and Cash App, once you hit that, they report to the IRS.
hmm
So a lot of people have had like extensive revenue that fell under the $20,000 threshold that didn't have to necessarily sort of ante up with IRS. But now because the threshold has been lowered, you're now gonna have to record that on your taxes. So
right.
the most of the automated apps, if you go into that, like Cash App has a section that you can go and pull up um your tax form
Hmm.
for your transactions and your if you have like stocks or Bitcoin or any of that.
Hmm.
Um I haven't looked under PayPal, but I'm pretty sure like most of the apps are gonna be doing that pretty soon because it's kicking in this year, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, from what I understand from talking to my finance person, they sent me the statute, and I think it was PayPal and Venmo, I think, that
And
were
I know Facebook Marketplace is doing that as well.
right, that were the exception, at least right now.
Hmm. So I'm gonna check out all of that because I've seen some things and I haven't seen the other thing. But while we're on this subject of like taxes and all this stuff, I did hear in a meeting, my SMATIC meeting, that because of the amount of people that were uh, filing all these false claims during COVID with these businesses,
Mhm.
there's some kind of issue with the sole proprietor businesses. You have to be an LLC, and you got to, if you want to continue to operate, there's a LLC requirement in there before you can get your name approved and get your any other thing that's associated with this business, that's your business license. So I'm looking into that. I haven't gotten all the answers yet, which is why I didn't bring it up earlier. But if you're a sole proprietor and you are still in business, there's going to be a requirement for you to turn your sole proprietorship into an LLC so that they can get that $300 instead of the 25 that you normally pay to get your name saved in the books and all that other good stuff. So from the $25, you're gonna have to start paying the 300. So I heard that at a SMATIC meeting last week from the person who works directly in that area, business development and all of that. People have filed so many of those claims until they had businesses but no employees and no income and nothing like that. And they were just
I
doing
think
that to
it's
get those
I
COVID
think
checks.
it's a single member LLC. That's what I have, and that's
Hmm.
an annual filing. So
Hmm.
you pay 300 every year.
This Felice.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So if you're a sole proprietor now, you have to turn into a LLC if you want to continue
Well,
to
no,
do
I'm
business.
saying that's what I am. I'm a single
Mhm.
member LLC because there's you can have you're correct. There's an
Mhm.
LLC when you have employees, and then you have a
Mhm.
single member LLC, and it's very easy to transition, which is one of the reasons why I chose that business structure. It's very easy to transition from an LLC as a single member to adding employees and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But I have a single member LLC, and you're right, it operates pretty much like a sole proprietorship, but I
Mhm.
just wanted to point out that it is a $300 filing fee, but you pay
Right.
that every year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because for the other one, you would pay the 25 for, I think, 4 years, I believe. Because that's how I've operated since 2006. I just paid the 25, and I kept the name for, I think it was like 5 years, 3 to 5 years, I believe.
The
But now,
trade name
yeah, the
application.
trade name.
Yep.
Yeah, but with the business license, they won't give you the business license if you haven't transitioned over. So I got to do some more homework on that before I actually report out officially on that. So thank you, Felice. I need to talk to you too about that.
Yeah, they're gonna come looking for that $300 every year, Linda.
Yeah, so I better ante up and sell some more seeds. Huh? I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's interesting how they're changing it. But fraud induces a lot of unnecessary burden on other people who are trying to do the right thing. Because a lot of those people that were getting those checks, if you saw this guy in Florida, I believe, he got a lot of money. He was buying Lamborghinis and all that type of stuff, saying he had a business and was getting money, and it was all a fraud. So
No,
good
you're
have to suffer with the
absolutely
bad.
right, Linda. But even before that, it was very it
Easy.
was very difficult to get
Hmm.
this information because I wanted to share with the group, and I forgot to mention it during my presentation. I wanted to share with the group if anybody has any questions. I know we're preparing for market season coming up.
Hmm.
I sent the information, and I believe Kim shared it either last week or this week about the senior and farmers market vouchers classes
Hmm.
that are coming up. If
Right.
because I like to get my money. I want it in any form they gonna pay it. I want to be able to
Hmm.
accept whatever form is most convenient for the customer. So
Yep.
trying to get that information when I first started out, it was very challenging. So
Yep.
if anybody is preparing for the market and they have any questions, or if you need assistance with trying to locate information about SNAP and EBT, because I navigated through that process as well. So we're kind of preparing for that now, and I believe Kim is willing to set aside some time in another open mic if anybody has any Q&A that they want to go over, and we'll probably do like a more detailed presentation later
Hmm.
on in the year. But just to make sure everybody gets off to a strong start. If it's anybody that doesn't accept SNAP and EBT currently that wants to move in that direction, I think there's probably a few of us that may be able to kind of assist with that process. Like
Hmm.
I said, I kind of figured it out on my own, but it wasn't necessarily easy, and it took a lot longer than it probably should have.
Yeah.
So if I can assist and shorten that learning curve, then please feel free to let us know.
Okay. And they having classes on those too. Those are the ones you're talking about.
Well, the classes are for the farmers market vouchers. Those are
Right.
for the farmers market and for the seniors.
Okay.
Those
Gotcha.
vouchers that
Hmm.
they give out during the summer.
Yeah, the coin things. Okay. Yeah.
No, the vouchers. They like
Okay.
actual checks.
Okay.
I think they're under the WIC program, honestly.
Okay.
The WIC checks and the senior checks.
Hmm.
That's what the training that email that Kim sent out, that's what those are for. Those are strictly for the vouchers. And that's
Okay.
done
Good.
through Maryland. I think it's done through Maryland Ag. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Yep, Maryland
Um,
Department of Agriculture.
Is it
yep.
money market?
Well,
No, that's
It's not
different.
the money market. Okay. Gotcha.
formally,
Okay.
they
Gotcha.
were managing that process, but no, the money market now is separate, right?
Okay, yeah, because I know Smatic does a lot of money market stuff. Okay, gotcha. It's very good to know. Thank you.
And
While
then the
we're
SNAP is food stamps. That's the independence cards.
Hmm.
That's USDA.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
and while we're on this subject, for the February open mic night, Felice and I were chatting about that too. Maybe folks would want to talk about what they're doing to prepare for their farmers market season, or their CSA season and maybe share some lessons learned from the season before. I don't know if that's of interest to folks. If so, we could save some time to kind of just do a round robin, very informal. Or if there's other stuff you guys would like to talk about, we can put something different on the agenda, but that was something, we had floated around as a possibility.
That would be excellent, honestly. No time like the present to prepare for the future. So yeah, throw it out there, and
Okay.
so we can at least be aware of any new pitfalls or
Well, I know a
ditches.
few.
Or
Well, I know a
ditches.
few of you ditches, exactly. Well, I know a few of you participated in markets and CSAs this season. So it would be great to just kind of share what lessons you've learned, and maybe we can all learn from one another, from the grower perspective. I know also.
Yes, definitely include the CSAs. I think that's
Mhm.
awesome too.
So we can talk about both of those, and we'll just kind of leave it open for folks, so bring, whatever information you have or notes that you have from the previous season, and let's just have a round robin discussion around CSAs and farmers markets, and, kind of get our brains screwed on straight and prepped for the coming season. Because I know sometimes in winter, we're still in denial about what's coming up. Also wanted to mention the Prince George's County Farmers Market Manager meeting is next week. I think it's the 26th. Is that next week? Yeah, it's the 26th. So if anyone is interested in that, just reach out to me via email. It's mainly for the managers, but I know sometimes it's helpful for folks who are heavily involved in farmers markets to sit in on those and listen. Charlie's actually running that meeting, Charlie Sasser. So you could just email myself and Charlie, and I'll put our emails in the chat box. And we can see if we can, get you the Zoom link to attend. The other thing I wanted to mention is I have fallen behind by the wayside on organizing the Farm Alliance date. I haven't done anything since we talked in December, but I will try to do that. I feel like one of the other dates that they were available for like February 4th and 18th. So I will keep on that. Also for March, we have speakers from University of Maryland Extension that are going to talk about farm stress and mental health. A few of you mentioned that that was something that you thought would be important for us to talk about, and I couldn't agree more. And then also Kay Megan from MDA's conflict resolution team. She also wanted an opportunity to chat with you all about some of their upcoming programs. So they're going to come on for a little bit in March. So, we can maybe talk a little bit about some de-stressing and mental health support, as a group and also individually to get ready for the season. Although the season will be here in March, but I know it's just kind of the last minute. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that Friday, I know Linda has been involved in these discussions as the urban farm rep for SMATIC, and Liz Robinson with the Gift Wellness and the Garden International. She's been involved as the chair for the Anne Arundel Prince George's County Urban Farm Work Group with University of Maryland Extension. They're just having some more conversation on funding needs specifically for urban ag. The Chesapeake Bay Foundation is trying to amend a current bill that basically no money has been earmarked for it, but there's legislation that exists to provide funding for urban farms in Baltimore City. So they're looking to expand that throughout the state. And I think they would like to put some money in there as well. And I think they're working with MARBIDCO to see how that might happen. So that is happening on Friday as well. So if you're interested, I'm happy to give you Robin Clark's email, who will be running that meeting, and Steve McHenry, so you can contact them in case you would like to join, or if you would just like to provide some feedback on some of the proposed legislation. So again, just shoot me an email and I'm happy to share their contact information with you. I don't know if Linda, if you have any other updates from SMATIC. If not, if anyone else has updates, please, come off mute and let us know. We're really excited that everyone was able to participate tonight. And again, I want to really take a moment to thank Stephanie and Felice for putting in the time to present some of their creative and wonderful record keeping ideas with us tonight.
I don't have any more announcements from SMATIC, but I did want to mention this Good Morning Farmer program that Anne Arundel County is doing. They are starting to do those every month or so. So if you want to join in, they're sending out the emails, and Kim will send them out once she gets them out to the whole group. But it was a very good, good talk on urban ag that we had last week. And it just goes to show, as far as urban ag is concerned, it's been around a long time, but sometimes it seems like people are thinking it's just something new, but it's been around a long time, and that's how a lot of people were being fed, through local communities. So, and not the big box grocery store. So getting back to that seems, in some instances, some people think it's a new thing, but it's really not. We're just carrying on and picking up where we need to pick up and carry on. So if you're able to tune into some of those Good Morning farmer meetings, it's online, of course, and it's like 8 o'clock in the morning, which I rolled over. I woke up, grabbed my phone and I got on the thing. So it's very early in the morning. I'm not used to getting up, I guess, being on the phone that early in the morning, but it's something that's there. And if you want to do it, just chime in. It's a good conversation. So, be glad to hear you on Good Morning Farmers.
Linda, where
Yeah.
can you find that information?
Kim gets it. She's gonna send it out. It's a part of you remember the Urban Ag Working Group, the gentleman in Anne Arundel County who actually started the working group concept for this particular thing. He is the urban ag educator who sets these trainings up. So it's every month, and it's coming out of Anne Arundel County. Their master gardening program and all the other things that are at that extension office, that's where that program is being run out of.
So just the last one was for urban farming. The other one is for, all farmers, but I will try to find that link and drop it in the chat box.
Yeah, because it's very interesting as to the topics that they'll plan to prepare for the duration of the next few months or so. But, it's just something else to, a little bit of a knowledge bomb that goes off there, and learn something new every time. All right.
Looks like Jamila has her hand up. Thank you so much, Linda.
All right.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to, if Teresa didn't already mention the book, Teresa, can you talk about the book? If you're there, maybe you might have stepped away for a second, but I'm about to buy it right now, so.
Hi, everybody. I am tired, okay? Writing a book is not funny. It's time consuming. Writing 2 books is insane. But last year, because I was absent from a lot of stuff, the first book I wrote was with Kathy Gents, and it's the urban garden, 101 ways to grow food and beauty in the city. It also applies to suburbia, so don't be fooled by that title. The second book that I wrote, and that's available for pre-order on Amazon. It is being printed overseas, so technically it's supposed to be here by the end of March. We'll see. The second book I wrote was Black Flora, and I interviewed people from across the United States, not just the East Coast. One couple chose to be farmers. They did not want a real job with a mortgage like I do. Others are started a flower farm, like a micro farm in their backyard and their neighbors' yards. And then there are floral stylists and floral designers. One young man was voted Florist of the Year, and he basically interned at a flower shop, so he didn't go through Floret or any of those other expensive courses. So I guess in a nutshell, what I learned from the people that I interviewed, number one, like an article I wrote 3 years ago, we grow more than collards. And there's something innate about growing. It's in our DNA. It's in our hands. And there is not always a struggle involved with becoming a farmer or a flower farmer or any kind of farmer. It's putting your mind to it and making it happen. Both of these books came at a time where Kim knows I was going to start my cut flower farm in the backyard. Well, That did not happen last year. It is happening this year between marketing these books and everything. But I really have to say, for anyone else growing flowers, which Jamila, I will reach out to you and anyone else. There is a specialty flower growers. She's out of Baltimore. I've got to get all the information. It's like I just woke up from a deep sleep, because the books really took up all of my time other than walking the dog and going to work. So, but there is an organization out of Baltimore, and she's very user friendly. She's friends with Lisa. Um, so I'm reaching out to them, but we need to do something here in Prince George's County with flower farmers. It's really important, and maybe some flower farmers are on this call, but we need to organize because I'm also part of another group of specialty flower farmers, and the Association of Specialty the Cup Flower Farmer Association is something like that. But the knowledge that you gain from sharing is amazing.
It is.
It is so powerful and so amazing. And one quick glimpse into the book, this couple, they were working, he was working in a pizza shop. I forget where she was working. They actually worked, they quit that job and they worked for a florist, cataloging flowers the week before Mother's Day. That catapulted them into going on farm tours. And when he hurt his back at the farm he was working at, she was pregnant, but she took his place. This is a young couple. They aren't even 34. She took his place. The next season, the farmer decided to hire both of them. And now they take their children that are very young to the farm. She basically had her baby almost in the field, as she says. But these are people that have chosen the life of touching the earth on purpose. And it's a small book, but it's a powerful book because it really shows us what we can do if we put our minds to it. So that's all I want to say. But yes, the books are, both of them are available for pre-order. But there's so much that can be done. I used to run a CSA. Growing veggies is fine. I'm co-chair of this community garden here in District Heights, but my passion is growing flowers. It brings joy, unimaginable joy, each and every day. That's it.
Thank you, Terry.
You're
and
welcome,
thank you,
love.
Jamila, for prompting Terry to tell us about her exciting news. Jamila, do you have another question, or is that from before?
Yay, Terry.
The only other thing I just wanted to mention, because I thought it was interesting since we talked about composting food scraps and at I think 2 discussions ago. And I guess our words have power on these Zoom calls, because then Kim, you sent us the email about the food scraps composting initiative in Prince George's County. So I thought that was pretty neat. So yeah, I just want, in case you didn't get your little thing in the mail, you can now compost your food scraps. Or if you didn't see it from Kim.
And I just dropped it in the chat box. Thank you for that reminder, Jamila. It is quite exciting.
It is.
Any other announcements? I know we're rolling up on 9 o'clock and y'all probably need to go to bed like I do, but didn't know if anyone had anything urgent or other announcements. And if not, I'm gonna go ahead and actually stop recording. If I can remember how to do that. There we go.